Did I go too early?
A little bit, but you're okay. I'll just go there right here. The vibes were much better. The effort was way better, but the result was the same. This is Locked On Nuggets. Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for making this your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can join the show, talk about your feelings after a tough game 3, a really fun game, one of the best games I've ever seen at Ball Arena. It was absolutely fantastic. And I empathize heavily with Nuggets fans this morning. That was a tough one to take, Adam Mares.
It was a tough one. Honestly, not as tough as the first two, though. I mean, maybe the bar is just getting lower and lower, but Denver at least battled, and coming up short when you battle is better than getting blown out.
Yeah, so Blackburn and I were talking before the game, and he was like, I just want to see them compete. And I was like, does it really matter? Like, if they lose, does a 10-point loss really matter versus a 20-point loss? And he was like, yeah. He was like, I want to see like them. I want to see fight. I want to see them actually be able to hang. I want to see like I don't want them to get embarrassed.
Well, let me set the stage even more. Like, part of what was you worried about tonight was, obviously like Jokic frustration boiling over again, like in another ejection or something like that. You obviously worried about the blowout where they just look like they don't belong on the same court. But then there was fighting. There was the infighting. That was the story, honestly, of the last several days between Barton and Boogie and everybody just kind of seeing not on the same page. So you wondered, with 2 more games to go, is this team going to buckle under that pressure? And it was just going to start to look like that. We've seen teams that have sort of, when it was all over, you thought, oh, that was done. This wasn't the case. Like, the team looked connected in this game. They played hard. They battled together, and then just came up short to what is so clearly a better team.
Yeah. Before we do anything on the game, I gotta say this. Like, this was honestly one of my biggest just takeaways. Look, I'm a transplant, but to the degree that I can be, I am so incredibly proud of Denver fans for this game.
Yeah.
Adam, this was the best atmosphere that I have been at in 10 years of covering the Nuggets. It has never been louder. I thought Malone was right. It was going to be 40% Warriors fans. That's how it always is. It was not. Like, Warriors came out for intros, and I was like, all right, here it comes. Boo, like loud boos. And I was like, okay, all right. And I was like, well, maybe they're just late arriving. They're Californians. Like, they're never on time for anything. It's fine. And no, like the crowd was absolutely incredible from start to finish until Barton missed the shot, which we'll talk about. They were absolutely plugged in, and they appreciated the effort. They were like, they rewarded the guys for the effort that they gave. Like, I thought there was a chance this game could get so ugly in terms of the Warriors are up 20. Are they going to get booed at halftime? Can you imagine getting booed in game 3 at halftime at home in your own arena? Utah
Jazz are down bad, worse than the Nuggets. Yes, that's what you're hinting at here. But no, in all seriousness, no, Matt, I mean, you know me well enough to know, and you've heard my spiel on this so many times, but I honestly think these things are important. Like, the NBA can be very toxic. Like, sports leagues can be very toxic, but sports are supposed to bring a city together. So to me, I was like Malone, very worried that it wasn't going to be this way. But by all accounts, I was obviously at the bar last night, but by all accounts, that crowd and in what it looked like on TV was just overwhelmingly people going for the home team. And like I said, I honestly think fans of other teams that go into other arenas specifically to troll and to talk shit are like a toxic infection on a city. So especially for a playoff game. So the fact that that wasn't the case in game 3, I think was a very good thing.
What did you see versus there are different terms being used for it. I liked Death Pool, but I will say that I really like Jared Dubin, who has anointed himself the committee for nicknames, has named it the what is it? I think it's PTSD. Yeah, the PTSD lineup. What did you see versus that worked in this one?
The guys made shots and played harder. I mean, I know it sounds like a simple thing. Down the stretch, the one thing I will say is one of the big storylines, I don't know if we want to get into this, but one of the big storylines was the Nuggets closed with their same starting lineup against that, the one that has been getting murdered. And they did a good job against that lineup in the first half, although they did give up a 6-0 run in the final, 30 seconds or 40 seconds or whatever. That was just an absolute killer. Like little mistakes compound against that lineup specifically. But they did a better job in the first half. In the second half, rolling back out there with Jeff Green and Aaron Gordon and Will Barton, Monte Morris, I thought that was a really surprising move. And I think a mistake. I think it almost hints at there's traits with Michael Malone that we kind of learned over time. And one of them is that he can be very conservative when things are close, meaning we're going to go to this, even though we have 2 games of data, that this is not one that can punish that lineup specifically. I know this is my closest best guys. And by the way, the alternative would have been throwing out like Bones Highland or, Jermichael Green or just maybe Austin Rivers, who I think was actually the guy he should have gone to, but just guys that miss with the program. But the thing was, you knew you weren't going to stop them. We have 2 games now, 3 games of data that you don't stop them. You have to be able to space the court. And I thought that steal that happened late in the game, even though it was already over, you go back and look at the spacing of that one. Nobody was being guarded but Yoke. Yoke was facing a wall of defenders behind Draymond, and Draymond gets a hand in there before he even makes his move. But I just thought that put the team in a tough spot to close the game. But it's a small thing. It's a little thing. But I just thought Denver in this game overall just made a lot of shots. I mean, they shot 40%, 42% from the 3-point line, 50% from the field, and that was one of the big differences.
Yeah, and like we're gonna talk about Will and the whole thing with that, but I do like I will go ahead and say that I thought the threes that he hit were huge. Like he had 10 points before, or he had 10 shots before the last one, or not the last one, but the worst shot, right? He had 10 shots, and one of them was really terrible at the end of the first half. And again, we'll talk about that second segment. Yeah. But the threes were really big, and Aaron Gordon stepped up big time. Let's talk about Gordon, and then we'll do Jokic, because Jokic was sublime. Aaron missed all those shots in the first half at the rim.
Yeah.
And the crowd's dying. Like they want it so bad for him. And could have given up. And, Kiz tweeted that he was more mentally tough than Aaron Gordon and all these things.
Oh my God.
And
I honestly could not believe that. Unbelievable.
And then in the second half, Aaron responded. Like Aaron, they got him on cuts. He finished strong. He dunked the ball. And this has kind of been the thing, is like Gordon, I think, has a hard time with the game. Like he's not, and he also has a lot of this, he hasn't been in the playoffs enough. He had, I think, 1 series with the Magic, maybe a few, but they were always so outmatched. Like playing at this level, he really hasn't done it. And so, like, does he need to get better? For sure. I think you can question whether or not Aaron's a 16-game player. I think it's fair to ask based off of his limitations. But the effort in the second half was phenomenal. He played great. That 3 was huge. Gordon, I thought, redeemed himself in the second half.
I thought he redeemed himself the whole game. And you're right that the first half he missed all those bunnies at the rim, and they were like I'm in my own head misses, like right at the rim, just missed them. But the thing is he played hard, and he honestly played hard last game. It just, you could tell he was like the pressure was getting to him. And this game, I felt like it's the old saying, when you're going through hell, keep going. I thought that was what the series has been for Aaron Gordon. Like he's been putting his head down, and you could tell he's been nervous. But in this game, he hit the big shots, and he got some big blocks. He made some big plays. And that 3 was a pressure 3. That 3 was a little bit of one of those ones where if you're the Warriors, it's like, we'll see if you can make this. Like our whole thing is predicated. When he hit it, I thought it was like, oh, okay, this game might be a little bit different. And it just wasn't. It just came up a little bit short. And there were some plays I'm sure we'll get into specifically that you go back and look at. The Warriors are so much better than Denver. If you could go top players in the series, the Warriors are going to have 5 of the top 6, probably. And this was one of those ones where you had to be perfect. And Denver made 3 or 4 crucial mistakes, not just missed shots or missed opportunities, whatever, like Monte missing open shots or, big momentum swings. Not just that. I'm talking they made 3 or 4 costly mistakes that turned the game. And you just can't do that against the Warriors. And it's tough, but that's just the situation they're in.
Bones was only 2 of 6. I thought he was tremendous. Like I just thought the plays that he made were huge. I don't necessarily know if I think that he should have played more, but I do think that I thought Bones was good in that moment, especially in that first stint. Cousins was great in the first stint, bad in the second. Let me ask you that, because Cousins did have like 9 points and played really well
in the first half.
in the first half, that's my question, right? Is like, if you just bake in that they're going to have a bad stint, is
Yeah,
that fair? Is that
I get
I don't know how to judge it, right?
well, I get that because typically that's what you would say of that second unit. The problem is the first unit features, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole. Like the the bench unit needs to. I don't think that they can be a hey, you just have to win one. You're going up against Gary Payton and Bielitsa and Andre Iguodala. Like it's a terrible lineup, and Golden State knows it. For them to not only get beat pretty handily in their 2.5 minutes to start the fourth quarter, but also to pick up 4 fouls before Jokic even checks back in the game with 9 minutes. The Warriors were in the bonus the entire quarter, and that also affected the outcome of the game. So to me, the bench is a big part of why Denver lost this game.
Yeah.
Like if you just look at this series and say that one team has a lineup that they like to play with Draymond, Steph, Klay, Poole, Wiggins, that is just absolutely killer and probably will be killer throughout this playoff run that they're going to go on. Then that means you have to win these other ones. They're prioritizing that lineup. So you have to set your team up for success. And the fact that they didn't on that moment, the biggest stint they had in the entire series, I thought that was pretty killer.
Yeah. Looney or not Looney, Thompson and Poole do start with that second unit to start those quarters.
But that's
Obviously,
different. Like Thompson and Poole are good players, but without Steph and Draymond, it's a very different thing. Like that's the thing about great teams. There can be really good, and I'm not saying role players because those guys are better than role players, but they should not be able to kill you the way that they can when they have Draymond Green alongside them. And then Steph Curry obviously is this like super sweetener.
I intended this segment to be a lot more positive. Jokic was incredible. Like 37, 18, 5, and 3. He was terrific. 14 of 22, 2 of 3 from 3. The 3-pointers finally went down, got to the line 9 times. He had one trip where he missed both, and outside of that, he was great on the line. 4 offensive rebounds, hit the face up versus Draymond, which is what I wanted him to do. They got him moving on the cut more, which I thought was that's the best adjustment when he's having those kind of issues. The play at the end was a fantastic play by Draymond, and your point is well taken on the spacing issues at the end there. But it was a really phenomenal performance from Jokic, and we wanted to see if he could win that matchup. And despite them losing the game, I think Jokic won that matchup.
Well, Draymond agrees with you, so I think we can go ahead and call this one for Yoke. He was really good, man. He hit a lot of tough shots, and it's funny. Like you go through this game and think, where was he better? I thought he played really confident, really aggressive, but also under control. Like in game 2, he clearly was losing control. That's why him getting thrown out was sort of an embarrassment. But in this one, he just looked confident and under control and calm. And the shots it's almost like he knew he was going to have to make tough ones. Draymond's so good, he's not going to give you easy ones. And Yoke was up for the challenge tonight. In this one, I even down the stretch, like in the fourth quarter, he was pretty clutch other than that last play. So it's kind of a bummer that was the one that I saw making the rounds on social media, but those are just the breaks. I thought he had a really good game. I felt he hit a Sombor shuffle in this game, which we haven't seen him make one in a long time. It was kind of nice to see. By the way, Ryan Green, our guy over at DNVR, had some photos of the Sombor shuffle. The margins and the Draymond versus Jokic matchup are insane. Draymond Green guarded that. Like even you could tell he even knows when Jokic goes to the Sombor. Like very few guys expect Jokic to go to that one-legged fall away. Draymond was sitting on it because it was late shot clock. And he's like, I know what he does here. He goes and he goes up and he jumps and he's right there. And his hand is like on the ball for the shot and somehow doesn't block it. And Jokic makes the shot, even though there was like a 1 centimeter difference between getting it off and getting blocked. So those two guys, honestly, man, if you love, this is where I wish basketball conversation wasn't so toxic. Because if you love basketball, this really is two elite players going at each other that are polar opposites going at each other. And it's pretty amazing to see how thin the margins are between them.
I will say this. Last night I saw a lot more from like respected voices, a lot of like Jokic is awesome. Like he's been incredible in this game, and like Draymond's playing him incredible. Like this is a great matchup. Like there was a healthy amount of that if he can weed through the rest of it. So look, a lot of positives.
You just have to like overlook Daryl Morey is all. Like you just have to.
A lot of positives. Daryl's got his guy. A lot of positives to take from the game. If this was like a regular season matchup or game 1, you'd feel good about it, but. Malone said after the game, like Malone said he was proud of the guys, but Malone was also like, there are no moral victories in the playoffs. And he's right. Like they lost. They weren't good enough and they're going to have to be better next year. but at least they gave the fans a game where they had a chance, and they didn't. You talked a lot about you and I kind of expected them. I think the turtle. I think you and I kind of expected them to be like 1-2-3 Cancun it.
I didn't expect that, but I worried it was more. I didn't expect it, but I definitely felt like it was on the table.
I expected it. I'll own that one. I expected it, and so they proved me wrong, as they so often do. And so, that it's too bad that's not like the lasting image, right? Like you hope Game 4 is the same effort, but a much better performance and good adjustments, except for a few notable things, which we'll talk about in the second segment because there's.
But let me say one last thing though. Him on this, Jokic hit 2 threes in this game, and he got Draymond on pump fakes like 3 or 4 times, just to kind of show you how important it is for Jokic to improve his 3-point shot. It made a difference when Draymond started to have to respect that 3 in a way he hasn't in previous games.
That's a great point. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk more about the bad from this game. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, do you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's a business scam to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill to take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is a new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill. I had like 3 subscriptions to random websites, like various basketball things that were defunct that were still charging me. Truebill helped me find that. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in just one tap. Your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions, so you don't have to. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. It can save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Let's talk about Built Bar, because Built Bar is amazing and delicious, and it's the best protein bar in the market. It's covered in 100% chocolate. That's amazing. It's a protein bar with 17 grams of protein covered in 100% chocolate. You've got mint brownie, coconut almond, the new ones, white chocolate cookies and cream. So many really good ones. You got the puffs, which are protein-infused marshmallow. That's just like an amazing sentence. What a time we live in. They've got flavors like churro and coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. And most Built Bars have got just 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 4 net carbs, along with 17 grams of protein. New flavors are coming out all the time. You can check them all out at Built.com. Just use promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for making this part of your day and your first listen each and every day. Make sure you check out Locked On Now, nightly recaps of all the games wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. It's Locked On Now. Adam, we're going to talk about the negatives in this segment. And I think it's the 2 options for us to start with are Will and Malone. Where do you want to start? I have thoughts on both.
Let's start with Malone because the Will one's going to be more difficult, but more annoying.
Yeah.
The crowd's going to get riled up.
So let's start with Malone. Not playing Rivers to end the game, I thought was a drastic mistake.
I think you forgot
out the game. I thought Rivers did a 10 times a better job than in games 1 and 2. Second quarter, third quarter in particular, he was in Curry's shirt. Yeah. Like he was in Steph's shirt. He did a great job of just constantly running, making the right moves, keeping position, playing him to the side, moving him away from where he wanted to go. I thought Rivers was tremendous defensively in this game. And look, Jeff Green, who I think in a variety of playoff series could have been helpful. I never liked him in this matchup.
Yeah, this is not for him, especially when as this got whittled down, the thing you needed more than anything else was rebounding, offensive and defensive rebounding. And Jeff's just that's not his strength. It hasn't been throughout his career. And even sometimes you think a veteran player knowing very clear what hey, it's rebounding. Just focus on that. He couldn't even provide that. But no. I'm with you. It is also a personnel decision. I expected it to be Rivers. I really like Austin Rivers. I hope he's back next year. My whole thing with Denver is I think they need 2 defenders. Austin Rivers can be one of them. I really do think that. He's good enough to be that guy. And then offensively, he made some shots. He's not going to make them every night, but he made some yesterday. So I'm with you. I just was so shocked he wasn't in. To me, that was the ultimate we were at practice earlier this week. Michael Malone referenced that exact thing, that we've got to maybe try some different people out against that lineup. And you did in the first half. Why would you go to the end of the game? Was it tied
Yep.
with 4 minutes to go and say, okay, we know there was a timeout? It's like, we know exactly what it is. They're going to bring in that death lineup to close the game. What are we going to do? And just to go back to that, to not only to go back to the same lineup, but then to also lose in the most crucial play being an offensive rebound that Andrew Wiggins got. To me, that was the game. Like, you talk about you knew at that moment the margins were razor thin. Denver was up 1 point or down 1 point with 2 minutes to go, 2:20 or something like that. Every possession mattered so much. And when they gave up that rebound just from a pure, like, not being locked in on rebounding, it was absolutely killer to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it was a mistake. I think if there's anything, and then this is not a Malone specific issue, but like it's his own coaching, so he bears responsibility for it. There's just always, it almost seems like a dramatic kind of like like we're gonna make a stand. Like I'm going down with my starters, and it's like
Right.
honestly, like in the playoffs, you need to just be like whatever is like the best lineup that is remotely possible. This is why Taylor Jenkins is blowing my mind in this Minnesota series, because he benches Steven Adams in
Yeah.
game 2, like
Yeah.
2 quick
Right
fouls,
away.
and then it's just like, hey Steven, it's not your series. We'll be back to you. Like we'll see you next round. Like, yeah, and he'll
Yeah.
play next round. I'm sure Adams will play next round. He'll start next round. Like Brandon Clark, in and out of the lineup really for 2 years, in and out of the rotation, like heavy minutes. Like, oh, Brandon Clark's our go-to now. Like all these adjustments. And I think Malone, to a certain degree, has always had a starting unit he could fall back on. Right? Like,
He has,
I
I mean,
don't
he's a very
remember it.
principled guy, and he does like his security blanket. That was a security blanket because you
Yeah.
know those guys aren't going to totally humiliate you. They might lose, but they're not going to totally, like, they don't know. Like, for example, the right answer to me, Denver is not going to stop the death lineup. They're just not going to. They can't do it. I'm not sure any team can stop them. Other teams will have more success, but not Denver. Denver cannot stop that lineup. You've got to put pressure on them, and you got to score. And guess what? You have maybe the best or a top 3 offensive talent in all of the NBA. So just give him spacing. Let's see if they want to double or let him single cover it, and let's just score on them. Draw some. They were in the bonus. Both teams were in the bonus with the final 4 minutes to go. So actually, you should be getting fouls, getting buckets, getting layups, getting open threes, and instead you just don't put that a lineup out there. So to me, the right answer was probably swinging like for a fence, swinging for the fence with a Bones and with maybe an Austin Rivers, just putting some shooting around there and saying, we're going to try to score every time too. And to not do that, to do a half measure where you're not good enough to defend, not good enough to rebound, but probably not good enough to score too. It's just safe. To me, that was it was a damning mistake that I think was a little bit too familiar.
Yeah. And again, like I just look at it and go like, well, the starting unit is better next year and back to what it needs to be. It's probably not as much of an issue. Except that it might be like there might be a series where and
That's the thing.
well,
Exactly.
and
It might be like you're talking about, would he have benched whatever the equivalent for the Nuggets is of benching Steven Adams for an entire series? What is the equivalent of that? It
yeah.
might be benching Will Barton or Michael Porter. Like it might be, hey, this isn't a Michael Porter series. They're really taking advantage of you. Maybe not an outright benching, but is there like, hey, we're not closing this series with you because of this or that? Like I just don't know if Michael Malone, I just don't see if he does that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, to show you like the desperation, like Quinn Snyder benched Gobert last night at 5:13.
Right.
Like it took until this point for them, but they finally like tried to go small last night with Eric Pascal. Like that's
Yeah.
and this is, I will say this is like not that's a good example of like it's not uncommon, right? It's that this is the gap between I think the elite coaches and the non-elite coaches is their willingness. But some of that's also, I will say, a lot of it oftentimes, and Green's not this case. Like this is not a case of that, but a lot of times it's like you can't do it because there's politics involved, whether it's the
Right.
player's contract or whatever. But like
Right.
Jeff Green's like just like a random role player,
Right, right,
right?
right, right.
Like
He wasn't supposed to be closing playoff games. Like he even knew that.
he's not only playing because Michael Porter Jr. is out, he's playing because Michael Porter Jr. and PJ Dozier were both out. Like I think Dozier's closing in that lineup last night. So, yeah, I agree. It was a bad mistake. We talked about it. Like, I thought Flacco deserved a look. It just didn't work. Like, it was worth a look, and it just didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to whittle down the series, game 2, the adjustment was Bryn Forbes, and game 3 was Flacco. Like, Denver just does the different choices they have to go through. Like, honestly, game 4 might be Zeke Naji, and maybe that one works a little bit better. I don't know, but it's none of these are like, oh, of course, that's where you go. Of course you go to Vlatko Chanchar.
Yeah. Right, Flacco Chanchar. Yeah. All right.
Someone like Maxwell here, I mean, all these sarcastic people like, oh, yeah, Adam, Bones is going to outscore Curry, Poole, Thompson. Guys, no, great approach. No, this is the point. Denver's outgunned in this series. Like, what do you want? They're outgunned. You have to just give yourself your best shot. And we've seen this for 3 games now that it's not about is Bones going to outscore Poole, Curry, and Thompson. It is it going to give you a better chance than Jeff Green would have in that moment? And like, that's the thing is, obviously, most likely that too would not work. Like, this is the whole point of it. It's just, can you give yourself the best chance?
Yeah, I think a lot of this is because this kind of clarified things to me yesterday. I was listening to a podcast and I forget which one, and it was basically like the Nuggets are trying to outshoot the Warriors, like because of where their lineups are at. Like Bryn Forbes is an example of that and things like that.
Right.
And you realize like they don't have the firepower to do that, but that's still their better option because they're so much worse on defense.
Right.
Like in order to beat the Warriors, you have to do what the Rockets did, which is like grind the game down into absolute just dirt. Like you have to grind it down. And the Nuggets absolutely do not have the capability to do that.
And
that's
also,
like
here's the other thing about it. Draymond Green had 5 fouls. Like, if you were really even not just conceptually about how you approach this game, but when that timeout happened with 4.5 minutes and you think, okay, Draymond's got 5, let's space this out. Let's just space it out and make Draymond either guard one-on-one with 5 fouls, or let's make them double and we'll have our best shooters on the court. Like, to me, it's just so obvious of, if you go into that game with 4.5 minutes to go and you come out of the timeout and you draw a 6th foul on Draymond right away, you probably win this game.
Yeah,
you probably win this one. Like, Draymond's that important to them. So you just had to give yourself that best shot, and it didn't happen in this one. And I'm curious, the Nuggets didn't practice today, which is another like surprise to me. The Warriors are. The Nuggets have this is the second day off they've taken this week, which is Malone knows the team better, obviously, but it just seems to me, I just look at those things and I go, how do you miss 2 days of practice during the playoffs?
I bet they're probably practicing. They're just not howling in practice. So they don't have to do media. They're probably doing a walkthrough.
Absolutely. But again, like, what is one of the things we questioned about the Nuggets early on in the series? Like, can they handle the pressure?
Yeah,
mentally, they were cracking. I'm being serious about this though, Matt, because it's a thing. I do wonder about the organization as a whole and some of this insulation that they try to create when it's like, hey man, the Warriors, Steph Curry did media 3 times yesterday. Like, that's just how it is. Like, these guys faced the music. They talked to Steph Curry was asked about coming off the bench. Like, people ask the uncomfortable questions and they're just like, hey, we're and now you have like championships under your belt. It probably makes it a little bit easier, but some of this is a little bit strange to me.
Okay. I don't necessarily, I'm not surprised just because like that's been his going practice of like not practicing the day after games, especially if it's like, I think if they gotten murdered, then he probably practices, but I think he was satisfied with the effort. I thought it was interesting. They went back to shoot around yesterday. That was like, huh. Yeah. That's the first time they've done shoot around in years. So I thought that was interesting. So yeah, bad game for Malone. Will. I thought he played great and had 2 horrible shots, maybe 4 horrible shots. Maybe we can get as high as that. I thought he played with energy and effort, but he's there on when they don't get the rebound, and this is the whole thing, right?
It's not that he's there. It was on him. Like, there were Monte, Jeff Green, Barton all had a better shot of grabbing that rebound than Andrew Wiggins did, but it was Barton who had the biggest assignment of like, hey, you're the one that was on your heels.
The way I look at the first one, I need to go back and watch. My read on it live was he was trying to get the edge to get downhill and force them to help so he could kick, and the Warriors just contained. Like, Thompson did a good job of getting to the side, and and because of that, they stayed home.
Yeah,
and he didn't have anywhere to go. That was my read on the first half one. The one at the end of the game, the way I described it on the fan was he wanted the moment. He missed the playoffs 3 years in a row. We can debate any number of things about Jokic's position or anything, or like all that stuff, but the safe option there is always just get it to Nikola, and Will wanted the moment, and he hits that shot to tie it, and that's like his playoff moment. But maybe they win that game, and he didn't make it, and like that's the story of Will Barton, right? Like not getting the rebound, taking that shot and missing it, and like that's the story of Will Barton, and that sucks.
I wouldn't say I thought Barton had a great game. He had some good moments, some really good moments, but he had some bad ones as well. You mentioned the early shot, like the ISO, the 20-second ISO in the end of the half. Which, by the way, when you're trying to waste the clock, an ISO is not the worst thing, but it's Will Barton, and he also went a little early that left just enough time for them to go the length of the court. And then was it him that gave up the end one on the play before that, like a bad foul?
In
that
was a really bad foul.
So it was like a bad 35, 40 seconds to end the half. Two different possessions. And then, that shot at the end of the game, to me, it's the rebound. Like that's the play of the game. That was the play of the game. And he was at the center of it. So if you want to like scream at him, to me, we can all agree on that one. The shot one was a little bit different to me. A little, again, what happened down the stretch several times, clunky toilet bowl offense, which is like, again, like you're not going to stop them. You might as well make it easy on you on the other end. And they didn't make it easy. So you get into that spot with a late shot clock, and then he pulls Draymond out. I'll say this. If you told me with that lineup, Will Barton taking a three with Draymond contesting it, but Jokic under the rim with Klay Thompson, I'd be like, hey, that's actually like an above average outcome for a possession in that moment. Like Draymond Green completely removed. Jokic has 120 pounds on anybody else in the paint. The ball just didn't bounce the right way. So that one, I know I said this on the show yesterday, and people disagreed with me, but on that one, I'm not as upset as other people are. I'm more upset at the circumstance that the team was placed in, that they had to get to a situation where it was either give the ball to Jokic where he has about enough time to do a Sombor shuffle on Klay Thompson, or have Will Barton throw up a deep three on Draymond Green with Jokic in rebounding position. Honestly, if I had to pick between those two options, I probably would take Barton shooting it with Jokic rebounding rather than Jokic shooting a fall away on Klay with no time left.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so it's just like, look, and there's comments about like comments about like excuses. Like I'm not excusing it. He took the biggest shot of the game and he missed it. Like
I did not hear you make an excuse for Will Barton. I thought that was a very critical comment. People they just want you to be as mad as them at Will Barton. And look, I will say this. I don't think he's back. I think I think Nuggets fans have one or two more games of Will Barton under their belt. So grit your teeth, gird your loins, and get through it.
I compared it to? That was for Will Barton. That shot was Mason screwing up versus Anthony Davis, where it's like,
man, no, Mason was a rebound.
Maybe that's fair, but like Mason was like a solid backup center. Like Mason would have been so helpful this year. Like a solid backup center, did his job. Like good teammate, played the right way, coachable, did all those things. Has this massive screw up in a huge moment, does not return. Now he's free agent.
Honestly, Barton, I think even if he hits that shot, I think Barton was gone. Like Barton, I think Barton expired 5 months ago in Denver, and he might have expired longer than that, but I think he really expired 4 or 5 months ago, and it's been a slow climb here, or slow descent here. I would be shocked, honestly. Like I'm accounting him gone, but we don't know that. I have a hard time. I do feel like it was a tipping point this year, and I just would be surprised if he was back.
So, you got anything else that's negative from this one? Anybody else annoy you?
I don't. Denver, Jokic said this after the game. The Warriors didn't feel them in games 1 and 2. I do think they felt them in game 3 a lot. A lot more than they had there. Like, and that was an important one, just for them to be able to show that, hey, they have more in the tank that they can give. I'm looking around here. The Facu thing was tough. I mean, it wasn't fair to Facu, honestly, to be in that spot either. But he didn't play. I mean, he came in and immediately had the turnover. That was a killer. So
yeah, the offense side was really that. He didn't even get a chance to like do any of the stuff that you like. That was gonna be the battle on defense.
It was 4 minutes. Yeah, it was 4 minutes, and he was a -10 in those 4 minutes. Like it's just tough, man. It's just tough. But It is what it is with the Nuggets this year.
Yeah, that's definitely
Oh,
true.
Monte. Yeah, somebody said thoughts on Monte. Monte had 2 or 3 three-pointers that were, like, open momentum
Yeah.
threes. They were big, and Monte's been big for Denver a lot. I mean, he's been nails. He's been nails, like, for years in clutch moments, and this was one game where he had multiple opportunities to hit a shot that
Yeah.
was, like, either pushed a lead from 3 to 6 or went from down 1 to up 2, like, just big
Yeah.
moments, and he just missed all of them.
Can I make the observation that this game is like this game really was a culmination of the entire season defined? Like, the Nuggets win this game if MPJ plays. The Nuggets win this game if Jamal Murray plays, but they didn't, and so they have to play these other guys. And Malone makes a bad rotation, and Barton takes a bad shot and doesn't get a key rebound. And Jeff Green plays, doesn't get a rebound when he's in position either. And
The
Monte
Nuggets are
Morris,
a
who
leaky bucket with three holes in it, and you've only got 2 hands, so, like,
yeah,
you
and
can
like
plug one, another
Monte
one
Morris,
open.
who's been nails all season and nails in his career, misses key wide open shots. And like Facu Campazzo was a -10, and
Yeah.
they played really good defense, but the Warriors honestly just hit a ton of really incredible shots because that's what they do because they have that kind of talent. Like the Warriors played at a pretty high level last night. Like I don't think the Warriors played like sloppy or badly. I think they played slightly worse than they did in games 1 and 2. That's to be expected. You're on the road, but their shot making was incredible. Like all of this happens in the same game. Like
Yeah.
and like that's the story. It's not when it rains it pours. It's when it rains it monsoons in a global catastrophic event. And that's the season for Denver.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about game 4 and we'll look around the league a little bit when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I want to talk about Shady Rays. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that gives you features of $200 sunglasses for a fraction of the price. That means polarized lenses, well-constructed durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Also, something you don't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' insane protection program. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every pair. They'll send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happened. Give them a try, and if you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. It's as simple as that. Plus, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop at ShadyRays.com. Exclusive for our listeners, head to ShadyRays.com and use promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code LOCKEDON for their best deal of the season. 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses backed by over 150,000 5-star reviews. We're also brought to you today by Effortless Rehab. Adam, what's like the part? Is that quadricep?
Yeah, my quadricep tendon. Oh yeah, effortless rehab.
When did you tear your quadricep?
2016.
Boy,
I was 33 years old, man. 33.
33 years old. That's let's see, 2016. That's in modern context, it's 700 years ago. So yeah, you've been dealing with pain for like a long time,
Yeah.
and it's crazy because that it can stay with you a long time. And if you wonder why, well, Effortless Rehab's got the answer for you. It was no accident that for 23 years, Utah Jazz players had half the number of injuries as other teams' players. Hall of Famers John Stockton and Karl Malone remain the 2 least injured players over the last 40 years. At age 39, Malone was still averaging 20 points and 36 minutes a game, playing in 81 games. So what did the Jazz do that nobody else had done? They employed a doctor who used a method called AMIT. Now you can join Broncos linebacker Bill Romanowski, Olympians like Peekaboo Street, and other top athletes because AMIT Effortless Rehab is available in Denver and you can try it out for an incredibly low intro price. There are about 20 muscles that support each joint. And if you have current pain or have ever been injured, like with a torn quadricep, 30% or more of the muscles in that area are likely to be shut off or inhibited.
This is exactly what happened to me, by the way. Like the muscles got shut off. That's exactly how I would describe it. Where they just like, it's like they get turned off and then it's so hard to turn them back on again. That's why I like the language in that.
AMIT Effortless Rehab reboots those muscles, turns them back on again immediately and without difficult workouts. Rebooting those muscles can relieve pain, it restores your range of motion, prevents future injuries, and helps you regain the performance you may have thought was gone for good. You're going to be dunking in no time again, Adam. What's your worst joint? What's your worst joint? Dr. Robert Weisfeld will reboot the muscles in that joint for an introductory price of just $35. You'll be amazed at how fast your body can change. Go to effortlessrehab.com/appointments to make an appointment online today or call 303-300-3933. AMIT Effortless Rehab, your fastest recovery ever. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making us part of your day and your first listen each and every day. Adam, I guess like here's just like a baseline question. Given the context of what happened last night, what are you expecting in game 4?
Expecting is interesting. I mean, Denver battled. They're just so outgunned, and I think what's funny is Denver, I think, had an A game, not an A plus, an A game. Like that was a pretty good one for them, probably 90th percentile in terms of what I think they're capable of, maybe 95th percentile even. The Warriors had like a B game. They weren't bad. They made a lot of shots. They shot the ball really well. They made good defensive rotations and things. They had a B game. So you look at that and you go, can Denver be better? Slightly. Can the Warriors be better? By a good margin? So what do I expect? I expect Denver will battle. I expect Denver will probably try something slightly different, maybe be a little bit more bold when you're down 0-3. Maybe you're willing to be a little bit more bold and try some different experimentation out. But at the end of the day, for the Nuggets to get a win, your best hope is to catch the Warriors on their heels. And the one thing I'll say is they shoot the ball really, really well. And it's so much easier to shoot when you just have nothing to lose. Right now, the Warriors have nothing to lose. Worst case scenario, you go back home to the Bay to close this thing out. So Jordan Poole has just been so comfortable and so confident. Expecting him to be cold is a tall task. But I do expect Denver to come out and battle the way that they did in game 3.
I would start Zeke.
You would start him.
I would start him. I just think this is throw it against the wall time. I would try Zeke instead of Jeff Green and ultra space the floor and switch everything except 1-5. The hedges on ball last night, they played more at the level. Great. It worked. Like it worked. Their rotations were so on point, especially with Austin. Like it worked. They need to do more of that. I think one thing I do think happened is I don't know how to put this in context because it's like if you say, well, they were tired, it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Were you tired in an NBA playoff game? Is that hard for you? I'm not trying to do that. It's like their effort level was so high in the third quarter. And like I saw a couple of comments that were watching on TV that when Jokic sat down, they're like, man, he is gassed. And because they only made it to the 10-minute mark, just under.
Yeah.
That to me, I think was a big reason why there were so many mental lapses at the end. The rebound, defensive assignments, etc. Is like, this is the thing is you have to have the stamina to keep your focus at the end of these guys. Like, even if you do everything right for 45 minutes, they kill you in the 3 minutes because you're tired and you make those mistakes. And so to me, it's like one part of this is you have to get I think you have to win those minutes again, huge. Like you have to win the starter minutes big. Like you gotta win this, and they were losing the starter minutes after the first quarter.
But it's crazy. How do you honestly? How can the Nuggets win the starter minutes versus? Are you talking about against Looney? That Looney lineup?
Yeah, against the Looney lineup.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. Because hey, did you know? Like I saw this from Kawakami last night. Death lineup was -7 last night. I'm not saying they solved it. Right. I'm just saying they didn't last night. They didn't get killed by the death lineup.
Yeah, you know what? To start the game, I think the Warriors were 6 of 8 to begin the game, and some of it was, I thought, good Denver rotation, and the Warriors they're good. They make shots that kind of break your spirit, and that's what happened, I thought, to start. Because you're right, they did lose the minutes in the start that they usually win.
Yeah, so I just think it's time to start throwing stuff against the wall. You threw Faco out there, that didn't work. It's okay, it didn't work. I think it's time for Zeke to see, and because the other thing is just like, look. Here's part of it. This is a good spot, I think, for Zeke because we've talked about the mental stuff with him, right? With the confidence. It's game 4. You're down 3-0. It's a no pressure spot for both teams. If the Nuggets win, great. You're gonna have to win 3 more. You're gonna have to win 3 straight with 2 in the Bay, right? Warriors, you just talked about their motivational edge. So I think it's worth a shot. I just think it's worth at least looking at. If it's terrible in the first 3 minutes, you sub him out for Jeff, right? Yeah. Get another wing in the rotation. Just get another forward into the rotation, I think is part of it. Because you need what you need. Honestly, I think part of their deal is they need size that can shoot. The lineups that Malone used last night, I will say this, Malone threw some weird stuff out there. He had a Facu, Bones, Forbes, Rivers lineup out there. And I was like, okay, sure, let's see. And it actually didn't go terribly until they started.
This is what's so dumb about this season and this series. All of the adjustments and even throwing stuff against the wall is Bryn Forbes and Facu. And the one thing I will say is if Denver is at throwing, if you get down early in this game and you're throwing at the stuff at the wall, I just would love to see Bones and Zeke get some run, in part because I want to see how they both respond to extended minutes. And you just get a little bit of a look at them. Not that this is the time of year to just be like, let's see what we have in our young guys. Like, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying there is a moment in which that would be the thing I wouldn't mind you trying out. I thought Zeke was going to play yesterday. He gives you shooting and he gives you some mobility, and then most importantly, he's just big. Like, I trust him to rebound more than I trust Jeff Green to rebound, for example. Not that I think it's going to work, but at least
I think if they hadn't played so well to start the game, like the first 2 quarters, I think he probably gets in. But maybe. I think that was part of it. Was like once it was like, oh, we're competitive. I don't have to like start throwing insane things out here.
Yeah. Even the Baku piece, man, to be honest with you, like I kept waiting like the game. I'm like, is this the moment? Like, I don't know. I don't know. The game doesn't quite feel like we need to go there yet, but alas, it was predetermined.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, I don't think Malone's had a great feel this whole season. I don't know how to really judge like other coaches and how they would do with this rotation and these challenges.
I know it's so hard.
It's not that I think that no one else would do better. It's that I'm just like, I don't know how to like grade it against a curve.
Yeah.
That's really the thing.
There's not like the answers to this problem aren't very like clear. Even us are sitting here trying to be like, I don't know, maybe that. I don't know. Like this way, the guy was yelling at me earlier saying the Bones is going to outscore Curry. Like, no, that's the whole point. If there was a right answer, we probably would all be seeing it.
I'll say this. One of the changes I think has to happen is, and I don't know how they're going to pull this off, and those are questions we're going to have to tackle in the offseason, which we'll have a lot of time to do so. They got to go one of 2 routes. It's either high quality rookies that you can definitely play in a rotation, and that's hard to know, or you go the other route and you start sacrificing the picks and the young guys on rookie scale contracts because you're just like, we're going to have a 15 or like a 12-man rotation of NBA players. Like, what I mean by that is like guys that can be top 8.
Right.
Like if they their gap this year was basically, and that maybe was like the big thing is like, I think they went 7. They had like 7 guys that are like, all right, these guys can absolutely play every night, can start if they need to. Like these 7 guys can start if they need to. And one of them was their 26th first round pick, right?
Yeah.
26th pick. So, but like it really was like, this is the thing is like, it was honestly, it was 8, 9, 10, 11. That drop off was too steep. That to me is going to be like one of the adjustments for next year.
But I think this part of this is also like it's easy to say the coaching. Like when you watch a team like the Warriors, they have a great coach in Steve Kerr. They have great on-court and off-court leadership in their star players as well in a way that I think we still are learning that Denver could probably use. And what I mean by that is I think it's easier to develop a Kuminga, a Jordan Poole, maybe even a Moses Moody, maybe a Wiseman, although that one has been a little bit weird. But I think it's easier to do that when you have a Draymond on your team and you have a Curry on your team. These guys that Curry willing to sacrifice and come off the bench, and Draymond who's like going to be in everybody's ear in ways both good and bad whenever things happen. And does Denver quite have that guy? I don't think that they do just yet. And it's a thing that when you look at this summer, I see a lot of people thinking like big time drastic moves. I think that there's a lot of around the edges, the Bartons, the Montes, the Jeff and JaMychal Greens, like those type of guys that are going to be reevaluated. But it's not just the skill set you bring in. I do think that they probably need somebody that more forcefully gets the messages across to the team.
We got a lot of suggestions for guys that folks want to see, and this is not the time for it. We're still at the end of a playoff series.
Right.
I do think though, like this is something we should do. We should take a show sometime in the summer, and we should just have it be open suggestion. Everyone, like the comments can just be, hey, what about this guy? What about this guy? What about this guy? And we'll just give like our thoughts on fit, feeling, whatever, regardless of contract and everything else. That'd be a good idea. You talked about on-court leadership. Can I rant about another game to you real quick?
Yes.
So I picked the Minnesota Timberwolves. I bet the Minnesota Timberwolves. I bet the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Oh, I bet you're big mad.
Here's a good example. Of the differences in what people perceive as leadership and what actual leadership is. Do you know who you don't want as your on-court leader in these situations? Pat Bev.
Yeah.
Like, look.
He brings an important type of, I don't even know if you call it leadership, but he brings something important, but I don't know if we call it leadership.
Look, Pat Bev, as much as he would drive Nuggets fans insane, would actually be a pretty good addition. Like, he's that guy that you want, right? Like
Yeah.
good enough offensively to not be a complete liability and a pest, right? But the problem is like Pat Bev is just too volatile. I love the man, woo pig, but he's just too volatile. You need a calming influence, and they had none in that game as the Timberwolves collapsed from up 26. Like just a 50-13 run by the Memphis Grizzlies. Insane. Just insane. Memphis is the best team in the league at sensing momentum and capitalizing. Like X's and O's, tactical matchups, this, that, and the other. Memphis senses a weak point, jumps on it. You get a little bit taken aback. They jump on you harder. You stumble backwards, and they just keep like wailing on you.
They're real ones, man. They really are real ones. I mean, you got to love that Memphis team. That's how I would describe them. They got real ones there.
Just absolute dogs all over that team. Man, Utah. Oh man. Oh, like literally the Jazz fans last night were in my mentions being like, can you please tell Nuggets fans that at least you're not us? That's like that was their whole thing. Like they are in trouble. Like, and like, honestly, part of this is like, I think the Clippers did more of it because of the collapse last year, but like Denver started like their decline. They had a really good season in 2020 and had a 3-1 lead.
Yeah.
And like Denver started breaking them apart. Do you have any other like big playoff ticks?
I don't. I mean, just from last night's games, not really. I will actually. Here's my big playoff take. Utah, as you mentioned, had to take Gobert off of the court. Now, a lot of this is they have bad defenders all over, but some of this is that Dallas does play that super spread you out style of basketball. You mentioned Steven Adams, DNPs in this series. Naz Reid and Karl Anthony Towns combined for like 8 points or something. I don't remember what it was. Like that's what just one little concerning trend here is some of these teams that are able to go small in the playoffs right now. Like we go back and forth between what has success, but in the Western Conference right now, teams are having success with small ball and spread it out and in a way that is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I think that's I think there is probably some concern there. I mean, that's like the thing is Gobert makes $35 million. But I'll also say this. You can counter that if you're able to punish the switch. You got to punish the switch.
Right.
If they're hurting them on the other end, then Dallas has to rethink the strategy. But
you also have to have better defenders everywhere else. Like some of this is like, sometimes just you get one guy gets punished for something for the sins of the rest of the team. This is like last night. Like, hey, I'm sorry, you've got to go up against the second best defense in the NBA, and you've got guys that can't make shots around you. Like, this is what we're going to close with. Some of it is that, and for Gobert, it's a little bit of that as well on that other side. It's just noteworthy that teams are having success in the West right now, going super small.
Yeah, so like to me, it's like I did a whole thing on this about how bad the perimeter defense is, and it's like there's nothing that Rudy can do here again, which is why like you have to play them into a status where you can use Gobert as what you pay him for, which is the best rim protector in the league. They can't use him like that right now, and that's why he doesn't have any value. It's like he's not helping him on offense versus a switch, and they're spacing him out, so he can't help him on defense. Like there's no, it's on Mitchell for just getting beat. It's absolutely on Mitchell. Yeah. Absolutely. Mitchell's been worse than Gobert.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting question.
It'd be ironic, though, if Dallas beats Utah and they end up trading Gobert to Dallas. That would be very, very ironic. It almost would be I wonder if Gobert secretly roots for it.
Yeah. All right, let's go wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for hitting with us on a Friday. We'll be back on Sunday night to recap the series or Game 4 and look ahead to Game 5. Either way. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Good vibe in the comments today. I think Nuggets fans handled that game really well. Again, really proud of the city and the fans last night at Ball Arena. That was awesome.
I like doing these the morning after. Much calmer chat.
Yeah, it's just better.
This might be our new workflow.
Yep. Because I would still be on tilt about Wolves +2. All right, that's going to wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. Have yourselves a great week.